Hey, it's Tetsu Live. How are you doing? I'm coming to you on a lovely Saturday afternoon. It's 5:30. How is everyone out there? Today I'm going to present something a little bigger than I initially imagined that I'd present today. With all the torrent of information coming out regarding the Syrian war, the gas attacks, and so on. I'm just going to do a quick mic check. Syrian looks good. Okay, so I have a lot of information to go through. I'm going to kind of scale it back. We can talk about the gas attacks, the implications, the different stands that various politicians, everyone from Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, world leaders, 10 countries coming out in favor. But I wanted to kind of also demystify, debunk the media narrative, the mainstream ones, and also the alternative ones. I have a particular edge to sharpen and knock against Vox Media, who had a 5-minute video on the Syrian conflict. So let's get into it. I need to pull up a web version of myself. So let's start with today. This is an article from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. And FAIR has been around for a very long time. FAIR is fact check or PolitiFact or Snopes before there even were those entertainment sites. I don't believe those sites are fact based. They are spin based. They are entertainment. If you want the real deal, go to FAIR. What does FAIR say about the media? Well, we have 5 top papers run opinion pieces praising Syria strikes. 0 are critical. We have the New York Times. We have the Washington Post. We have USA Today, Wall Street Journal, and finally, bringing up the rear, New York Daily News. And we can go into this if you want to. It's kind of depressing in terms of the rah nature. And for those liberal friends of yours, you might want to point them to this article, point them to references on FAIR, just their Wikipedia page, right? Now, one of the headlines you might have seen passed around if you're a progressive and subscribe to Real Progressives is acting on instinct, Trump upends his own foreign policy, originally titled On Syria Attack, Trump's Heart Came First. So, this is the reason why I stopped reading, unsubscribed, unliked the New York Times in the middle of the primary season. Actually, for those of us who followed the primary battle, even in 2015, when the New York Times endorsed Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders, that was my moment when I left. I unleashed a massive comment. It got a lot of attention from that very beginning of my social media campaign to be Never Hillary before the hashtag existed. I started receiving friend invites, and it's interesting. Those friends who have stayed and come and gone and whatever, but personal stories. Moving on. Now, let's get on to the business of this Vox article. So if the New York Times, Washington Post, and MSNBC, CNN, and Wall Street Journal, and all those medias, Fox, etc., are not legitimate sources of journalism with integrity, who do we look to? I think Vox is one of these outlets that gets promoted quite a lot, along with HuffPo. And I have an interesting story about HuffPo. Did you know that Huffington Post, and I'll switch back to myself, did you know that Huffington Post was funded by the same people that started Breitbart News? I'll be working on a little 15-second meme with a colleague here at RP on that. But it's true. Breitbart invested in the Huffington Post. So did BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, and Breitbart, they're all the same people. Okay? Now, that should give you pause. It should give liberals a pause. It should actually give Republicans who read Breitbart pause. Why are these people working together? So I think the media and the Syrian war is an issue that speaks to all types of people across the country. I believe most people in this country, if polled, which doesn't happen, are against the war. They've learned their lesson from Iraq, even if the elite and establishment have not. And there is a good reason why they haven't learned their lesson. The reason is they did learn their lesson, but they lack the creativity to come up with a new type of narrative, propaganda, and so forth to reinvigorate their quest for global domination, essentially. Getting back to Vox, what we have is the 5-minute history according to Ezra Klein et al. At Vox. And I dislike Vox on many levels. I like Vox on some. To my liberal friends out there, I enjoy eater.com. I am very much a gastronomic, foodie type of person. I used to be a restaurant critic. I used to look at eater.com every day. It's owned by Vox. I used to read the New York Times dining section every day. Restaurant reviews, what's going on in New York City, what's the new food trends. Now, that's all nice and that's all entertainment, but when it comes to journalism and media, you need to demand better. Let's listen in on the parts of this 5-minute video on the history of the Syrian conflict.
Iran is sending daily cargo flights and has hundreds of officers on the ground. At the same time, the oil-rich Arab states on the Persian Gulf began sending money and weapons to the rebels, mainly to counter Iran's influence and mainly through Turkey. Iran steps up its influence in turn in mid-2012.
Let's stop right there. So what's missing from this narrative? What is missing from this narrative is that you see the bad guys funding Assad. But completely missing from this video is the facts regarding the rat line. And the rat line, as probably a lot of you know, is the illegal clandestine tunnel to ship armaments, chemical weapons after the fall of Gaddafi, the US-led overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya, funding those weapons over actually to ISIS and so-called rebels. So that is completely missing from that, and we'll get into that a little more when we see Seymour Hersh's article. Now, I think I will just kind of fast forward a little bit over to the 2013.
Horrified by Assad's atrocities, signs a secret order authorizing the CIA, and horrified by Assad's Sunni powers on one side supporting the rebels, and Shias on the other side supporting Assad. That April, the Obama administration, horrified by Assad's atrocities, signs a secret order authorizing the CIA to train and equip Syrian rebels. But the program stalls out at first. At the same time, the U.S. quietly urges the Arab Gulf states to stop funding.
Okay, I didn't quite click on the right area, but what the Vox media piece states is that the 2013 Ghouta attack was done by Assad. So Vox comes out straight up, says it is Assad who gasses his citizens. There's no mention of the rat line, but there's mention of the red line. What is the red line again? That is the fictional border or cutoff point where Obama's going to say, we're going to go in. As we know from yesterday, from my talk, he never did. The rest of this piece is kind of, if we go back, kind of silly. The political grandstanding, Russia. Is there any need to play any of this any further? Probably not. It descends into the quagmire of ISIS rebels. And these rebels, they've never been clearly identified. There is no such thing as a unified, free Syrian army. I don't think even the media talks about it. There's a little mention of the Kurds. There is mention of Turkey as well as Russia. The Kurdish angle in this particular video is very underplayed, and I think viewers, you should know that Turkey's stance on the conflict has a lot to do with the Kurds. The Kurds are in that in that intersection of Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. They occupy and even Iran to some extent. So the Turks, in their own battle for autonomy, not exactly independence, but they are being stepped on by Turkey. So Turkey doesn't like the Kurdish influence on their own state, and so they're a problem. However, in a realistic view of geopolitics, the Kurds are actually very useful. And I've been told that the Syrian conflict, or ISIL in Syria, can be resolved completely within a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, if and only if the Kurds and the Peshmerga, their army, were allowed to do their job. If Turkey, even Russia, the United States, mercenaries sent by the CIA and so forth, just left and allowed Assad and the Kurds to wipe out ISIS, they would be done. It would be a matter of weeks. But of course, that is not going to happen, is it? All right. So let us move on. Is there any questions on that? I shall sort of check in here on Facebook. You can catch this also. Let us move on. Is there any questions? Whoops. On YouTube and Periscope. Those links are provided to you, of course, in the description of the narrative above. And I can see a lot of conflicts. So there, comments. Yes, it's true. BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, and Breitbart are all related in terms of who initially founded and funded them. You can catch that. Would you like to see it? Would you like to see a link? I will do that for you live. Okay. It's whoops, that's the wrong tab. Let's just type in Breitbart, HuffPo, BuzzFeed, and founder. Okay. Here it is. How Andrew Breitbart helped launch the Huffington Post. Okay. BuzzFeed founder Jonah Peretti, a HuffPo contributor, co-founder himself, recalls the brief partnership on record for the first time. And so Breitbart was an initial investor in Huffington Post with Anna Huffington, of course, a former Republican socialite. And this is an old article from 2012, actually. It goes back to Matt Drudge, who gave rise to Andrew Breitbart, and then, of course, Steve Bannon. So, a year later, Peretti visited Breitbart in his home in Los Angeles, and Breitbart showed off his remodeled kitchen. "Look what I did with my HuffPost money," he said. Of course, Andrew Breitbart dropped dead a year later. So, yes, it's true. The alt media, whether it's Vox, HuffPo, Breitbart, and even BuzzFeed, they have, if you think you have to take the mainstream media with a grain of salt, you better bring the entire salt shaker when it comes to these other types of outlets. Just because they're different doesn't mean they're true. And you just have to learn from experience, judgment, your own research as to who is speaking to the truth. There are times when the narrative from Breitbart, or God forbid, even commentators from InfoWars, also related to Steve Bannon. Alex Jones is a direct relationship with Steve Bannon. Do have little nuggets of truth that the liberals don't want you to know about. And so, okay, maybe I'm getting a little too into the weeds with media. Shall we go on to actual journalists who talk about the truth? So right in front of us, we have Eva Bartlett, and it's kind of a shame on me for not bringing Eva's image and work to the page. I haven't had a lot of time to do a lot of investigative live streams as of late, basically ever since the election was over. Now, this is Eva's famous address at a UN conference, and should I play some of that for you? Probably not. It's, this is an hour-long conference. She's basically debunking the mainstream narrative about the white helmets, who these people are, and what they're actually terrorists. She says, and also, of course, we have Vanessa Beeley, who have this appearance on this, I think it's a UK column news, that's what it's called. There was a very good infographic on the, let's see, the sort of, it was a chart on, here it is. All right, so let's get into some of this.
And that the White Helmets describe themselves very categorically and unequivocally as a non-governmental organization without any, not any government funding, but also without any funding from any parties involved in the conflict in Syria, and that's very clearly stated on their website. However, when we look into their funding, both the United States State Department has admitted that they fund to the tune of $23 million via USAID, United States Aid Development Agency. United States State Department has the UK Foreign Office is actually the primary funder, which was reported in the Telegraph last year, funding up to without any funding from any parties involved to the White Helmets in Syria. If we then look at, do you want me to run through? However, when we look into their funding, if we look at James Lemurier, British mercenary in the British Army until 2000, background in all of the NATO intervention zones. And then he has links going back through the Olive Group to Blackwater Academy, which is Blackwater, known mercenary group. He's also now working with Richard A. Clarke, Bush's terror advisor, who has connections to Rita Katz, US Israeli agent who set up SITE, that distributes the ISIS execution videos. And if we then look at, obviously, Raed Saleh, just very quickly going back to him because we've mentioned him.
That's the gent at the top of that,
yeah.
Yes.
We've mentioned him in conjunction with the London Fire Brigade, and it's him being photographed with the Assistant Commissioner. Raed Saleh was recently deported.
Okay, so that was a ton of information from Vanessa Beeley defining the actual structure of the White Helmets. I think the White Helmets came to our attention with the initial release of Aleppo Boy, the photograph, the boy and the orange ambulance, and that photo triggered a worldwide storm of media attention. The photographer of Aleppo Boy is a man by the name of Mahmoud Raslan. Here's his Twitter account, and Mahmoud, the photographer, has known links to Helsinki terrorist affiliates. He has done selfies with them. He associates with them regularly. He used to have a Facebook page, which is no longer available. Here is his stuff that he posts. You know, here he is again with militants. Some of them change uniforms, become white helmets. I mean, look at the top of his banner: "Stop Russia." Right? It's pretty clear what this guy's agenda is. Raslan is a member of the Aleppo Media Center, a propagandist outlet. Not exactly inside of Aleppo, by the way, I believe. And so it is this man's job to promote and publish, create photographs that engender sympathy, emotion against the Russian agenda. And so that is who he is. If you want to get into the gritty details of who this man is, there has only been a single article. The man behind the viral boy in the ambulance image has brutal skeletons. So here he is. This is on the left is the photograph of Mahmoud Raslan with his friends, who are supposed to be rebels. And here are his rebel friends as terrorists beheading a 10-year-old boy on the back of a pickup truck. You don't believe this video, this photograph? You know, the sort of grayed out or pixelated cover of the boy's face. I have actually seen this video. There are sites in where you can hunt down these gory videos. I've watched them. I've actually watched his friends behead this boy, who was a Lebanese boy and politically against these Helsinki terrorists' agenda. So they cut his head off. All right, and they did it in the back of a pickup truck. I saw his body flailed on the back of the pickup truck bed. They took a knife, they cut it off, they held it high, they yelled some things, and they did it. You know, now Raslan was not in the video, but okay. So we shall move on to real news again, not fake news, not propaganda. Tell your friends about Seymour Hersh or Cy Hersh. You know, this is the article that kind of broke the cover on Clinton. It goes all the way back to Benghazi and further. It's inside of WikiLeaks, exactly what they wanted to do, how they wanted to do it, and they did it. Seymour Hersh only just proved it, that there was this illegal, again, covert tunnel between the weapons cache that was stolen as spoils of war from the Libyan overthrow of Gaddafi to rebels inside of Syria, whether they be ISIS or other type al-Nusra or other types of organizations working to overthrow Assad. So it is a very lengthy article. Seymour Hersh, a Nobel Prize winner, is probably a little too intelligent for most people to grok or comprehend. I mean, the first 4 paragraphs alone are just sort of background on British intelligence, the sampling of the sarin that was sent to British intelligence. They analyzed it. They found that it was not, could not be from Assad's own infrastructure. It did not have the capability. It had the signatures of sarin gas coming from elsewhere. And then you get into the whole political propaganda scheme to get into Syria, right? So it's again, it's a very lengthy article. I've read it 2 or 3 times. I'm not going to cover it in depth because I think you should do it on your own. And so that's kind of the first part of the talk. The Syrian war, the complete picture, early 2017. I'm sorry we needed to go through all of the history, but the history we have is fake news. It's the narrative of the New York Times, the Washington Post, presenting that Assad must be overthrown. That is the history they present. They present that Assad is a war criminal. And so something that Bernie Sanders says as well. So there's a history that most people know. If you want to dig a little deeper, then you get Fox and their mumbo jumbo and missing important information about exactly what happened, who these terrorists are, who the rebels are, where did these chemical weapons come from. There's no discussion about that. I mean, either they're lying to you or they just gloss the mainstream media, repackage it up, fire up Final Cut Pro, throw some background music on it, get some hipster sounding guy to narrate, and you're done, right? So it's easy to fall for that. Now, what's going on today? Well, we have the worldwide response to the actual response by Trump to bombing the airfields. We have Hillary Clinton. Shall we hold our noses and listen to a little bit of what she said? Okay, let's do it.
The targeting of women, which is what's going on, is absolutely beyond any political agenda. There's something else happening here. So the global gag rule, that bounces back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. But the way they wrote it this time, not like Bush did, not like Reagan did, this time would be to remove all aid if there is some kind of alleged breach, because you provide family planning services, but should take out his airfields and prevent him from being able to use them to bomb innocent people and drop sarin gas on them.
And now, with
All right. Sorry to do that to you. Hillary Clinton unbowed in her quest to promote lies and further the agenda of the elites in their quest for global domination. Um, all under the cover of liberal values, right? She has to get that in, that she's feminist, a feminist who kills women, but a feminist nonetheless, and thus the moral justification for an illegal act of war. And that is very much similar to what Nikki Haley, is doing in front of the UN. Here she is. Actually, that is yesterday. So, Nikki Haley, her job, United States ambassador to the UN. Um, I'm not going to play her, but she clearly on the 5th came out that we have a responsibility to act on the behalf of the Syrian people. And it's funny how the suffering of foreign nationals now becomes the vital interests of the United States. Since when does that happen? Since when did that happen? Tim Kaine and Unable, half of the team of Kaine and Unable. He came out and said that it was, it was what Trump did was the right thing to do, but the wrong way. And I was listening to Garland Nixon, a friend of mine, and we've been, he's been part of some of RP. He described Tim Kaine's stance as this, and his analogy was, well, Tim Kaine, what if I came to your house and stole everything you had and redistributed it to homeless people? It's the wrong thing to do, but it's right, here, So I hope you don't mind if I come on in, take everything you have and give it to people who need it, because that's what you're saying about Syria, right? Now I want to, before I get to the international response, I'd like to kind of go off on a wild shakeup, I guess, of we're progressives here, and I think it's really important to stress that the Syrian war is something most people in this country are outraged against. Maybe Republicans and conservatives don't feel the compassion that liberals and progressives do about people dying in Syria. Maybe they're just against another war. But we're missing a huge opportunity to kind of reach out, if you will, to Trump supporters. You have people at InfoWars asking their viewers to do what I did yesterday, which is kind of, hey, Trump is surrounded by crazy Council on Foreign Relations people, and hopefully somebody can get to Trump and talk him out of this. So that is what I said yesterday. And yes, it did occur to me on the overnight that we're missing a huge opportunity to stand together, not just as progressives, but as an entire nation against war. And who is preventing some of this? Unfortunately, Bernie Sanders is. So the position on Bernie Sanders is slightly complex, if you will. He is calling. Oh, I need to get back to me. So Sanders says that Assad is a war criminal. He bombs his own people. He gassed his own people, and he needs to be taken out. That is his position. However, he is on the side of some people in that it's an illegal act of war. He's not getting approval from Congress, people like himself. So what is it, Bernie? I don't understand. So, but the thing is, Bernie, when you deny the truth, you're going to miss an opportunity in the future to claim moral authority on the issue. And in doing so, what Bernie has done, he has forfeited his right to reach out across the aisle and unite conservatives and liberals alike against the war. It's only so what Bernie is saying is, I'm only against this illegal action, but I support overthrow of a country. That is his position. It is very, very unfortunate. Bernie Sanders has a regrettable record in history on foreign policy. Going back to a personal story, in 2014, Bernie Sanders held a town hall in a very small one in Vermont with his constituents. It was a small crowd of maybe 60 people. The subject turned to Israel. And a lot of the audience were anti-Zionist, looking for Bernie to show a little leadership on the two-state solution. And it got heated. So much to the point that Bernie got upset and angry at the audience members who were starting to chant, and he literally said, "Shut up, I'm talking." That is what he said. I watched that. I was disgusted by his behavior, and I told myself I would never ever vote for this man. And then he announced his candidacy. It took me months to come around and support him. I did. He's a very flawed man and politician. He doesn't, I believe there's no heroes in this world, and especially not in politics. You make a deal and make your own with the devils and sleep in the beds that you make. How can anyone be clean? So, but what I wanted to get to is kind of a sort of argument, if you will, from a Republican that will kind of trip your mind somewhat. And here's Bill Maher, a liberal icon of the late night talk show circuit, talking with somebody named Michael Schur. And who is Michael Schur? Michael Schur is an ex-CIA analyst. He was assigned to the Bin Laden group and did that for many years and retired. He is a Republican. And here he is, and this is sort of tying together U.S. national interests, what Nikki Haley is espousing at the UN Security Council, that this safety and security of these poor Syrian people are a vital U.S. national interest. And I know it's kind of unrelated, but if you will allow me to play this small clip for you, I think you will find an argument that completely destroys it. So let's listen on Bill Maher and Michael Schur.
But would you grant me this, that as long as there is an Israel in the world, and I'm a big supporter of Israel, and as long as America backs it, the kind of Muslims that take their religion that seriously, that they would strap on a suicide belt, are always going to be out for us and always going to be trying to kill us?
I think we can reduce it very seriously, sir. I disagree with you on Israel, but...
in what way? You're not a supporter.
I hope Israel flourishes. I just don't think it's worth an American life or an American dollar.
You don't think the existence of Israel in the world is worth an American life or an American dollar?
Not only Israel, sir, but Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or Bolivia. I'm much
You really
more.
can't. You're really not telling me that Israel is on a par with Saudi Arabia.
I'm telling you, what I'm telling you, sir, is I'm most interested in the survival of the United States.
But Israel is a democracy in a part of the world that has none.
So what, sir? It doesn't matter to Americans if anyone ever votes again.
It doesn't.
You know, we'll get
Well,
by. We'll get by just fine, sir.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't get by just fine.
So wow, I mean that's a sharp elbow of truth coming from a Republican and ex-member of the intelligence community regarding national sovereignty, priorities, and why nations exist. I mean, we people like Michael Schur, dedicate their careers to protect U.S. national interests, not other nations' interests. That is just the way it is. You can't. We say. I think a lot of the soundbite arguments are, we can't police the world, and while that's true, I think Michael Schur brings it in very sharp focus and contrast. I mean, for Bill Maher to be completely stunned on live television or whatever he was doing, that is some truth coming at you very hard, and pretty much exposes Bill Maher's geopolitical, ideological underpinnings, is the soft belly of Bill Maher, the Islamophobe, the misogynist, the Zionist that he is. And I frankly I find Bill Maher somewhat repulsive as a human being. That is what I have to say about him. So, moving on, shall we go to the international response regarding the attacks by the U.S. on Syria? The United Kingdom, for it, of course. They are a part of the Security Council. Their full-throated defense alongside Nikki Haley was pretty not a good taste in your mouth. Turkey welcomes it. Of course, Turkey being a very shady character in international geopolitics, Turkey being having a president who, when Gaza is attacked or the West Bank is destroyed or whatever by Israel, he will go and visit children in the hospital. And yet, at the same time, Turkey participates in war games, friendly war games with Israel. They do it every summer in the Mediterranean and other places. Turkey is a really hard one to figure out, but you can be sure that Turkey looks out for Turkey. They don't gladly hand out their blood and treasure to other countries for the gain of a few elites and business leaders or military industrial complex CEOs. They do it for their own survival. The sort of two-faced policy that Turkey does. Saudi Arabia, of course, in favor of the attacks. We have Western Europe, Italy, France, Germany. Yes, yes, yes. Even my own country of Japan. What did they say? We support the resolve of the U.S. government of never tolerating the proliferation and use of chemical weapons. Actually, that's the closest thing you will get to neutral. So, yay, Japan. No, I'm Japanese, by the way. Okay, the European Union. I'm gonna move back. Oh, I forgot to switch. Favor, yes, understandable. Poland, Australia. Malcolm Turnbull, the Prime Minister of Australia. Let's read his tweet. The retribution has been proportionate, and it has been swift, and we support the U.S. in that swift action. So the retribution has been proportionate. So is it that the people who died in a gas attack were Americans? I guess if it were, maybe that would be proportionate. But as it turns out, no Americans died. It was Syrians who died. So, and finally, of course, Israel, right? Now, and we just covered what Michael Schur thinks about Israel. A highly rational and sort of eye-opening worldview from someone who knows geopolitics and sovereignty very well. So, okay. Now, where do I need to move on? I got finished with the world, our favorites, Hillary and Bernie. So we're going to finish out here with the reactions by mainstream politicians. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. Basically, all the Democrats are for this. Is, of course, John McCain, a lifelong war hawk. He will take war with him to the grave, as well as, of course, Graham and McConnell. But what do our Democratic affiliates have to say? I support the administration strike. Bill Nelson, Florida. I hope this teaches Assad not to use chemical weapons again. Of course, I think Assad, whether he did it or not, the evidence is that he didn't do it. 2013 gave up and agreed to monitoring his armaments so that they don't have chemical weapons and weapons of mass destruction. But let's forget all that. Tim Kaine, of course, we covered him. Dick Durbin, Ben Cardin of Maryland. Chuck Schumer. Making sure Assad knows that when he commits such despicable atrocities, he will pay a price is the right thing to do. Now, the only person on the Democratic side to come out not in support of the strike, Tulsi Gabbard. Trump's military strikes in Syria are reckless and short-sighted. It angers and saddens me that President Trump has taken the advice of war hawks and escalated our illegal regime change war to overthrow the Syrian government, Gabbard said, adding that this escalation is short-sighted and will lead to more dead civilians, more refugees, strengthening of Al-Qaeda and other terrorists, and a direct confrontation with the United States and Russia, which could lead to nuclear war. Yeah, I think a lot of you are fans of Tulsi Gabbard, and I personally like Tulsi Gabbard. She also has a checkered past, not as seriously as checkered as Bernie Sanders' past in terms of supporting war. But I caution you once again, to hold any person up to hero status. You do not trust the hopes in your dreams, and lay back and leave it to these celebrities. You do it yourself. You make sure. You work with us. You work with whoever you like to work. You make sure. Especially if you have kids, you don't lay back and let these people do it. Warren. So, Elizabeth Warren, my senator, saying their actions underscore why the United States should embrace innocent people who are fleeing in terror, in her condemnation of the chemical attacks. So, she doesn't even talk about the strike, except to say President Trump expressed if he expects such an authorization, he owes the American people an explanation of his strategy to bring an end to violence in Syria. We should not escalate this conflict without clear goals and a plan to achieve them. I've never heard such nothingness from Elizabeth Warren, even in her most vapid tweets. This is what my friend Steve says, a nothing burger. And where's the beef? Where's the stand against war, Elizabeth Warren? Where is, don't cite me technicalities on constitutional authorization or congressional authorization on use of force in foreign interventions. Get to the point, Elizabeth Warren. It is something she is unable or incapable or unwilling to do. That is why I hold Elizabeth Warren in particular disdain. So, finally, we get to the man in charge, Donald Trump. Where does Donald Trump stand? That's a very good question, isn't it? And one thing I learned from listening to this guy on InfoWars is that many of Trump's inner sanctum come from the Council on Foreign Relations. And who is CFR, Council of Foreign Relations? They are a very old, since 1921, conservative foreign policy think tank. You may have heard of the journal or magazine called Foreign Affairs, and they publish it. They were founded during the Roosevelt administration, Teddy Roosevelt administration days. It was big even then, something around 100 or so experts on foreign policy. But ever since the very beginning of their founding, the Council on Foreign Relations was not purely a think tank. They had an agenda and a motivation to protect business interests abroad, very similar to what we expect from everyone from Henry Kissinger, Madeleine Albright, both of whom are members of CFR, or one-time board members, and two people who, former secretaries of state, who now run very wealthy consulting agencies on how to lobby, how can we help you, foreign interest, foreign national interest, foreign state national interest, foreign corporate interest, how can we help you curry favor within the United States? That is the mission of the Kissinger group, the Madeleine Albright and Colin Powell group, the agencies that they have founded. We see many members on the CFR to date. This is just going from Wikipedia. I told you about their inception. If we get to the current status and mission, it is a gross, huge global network of organizations that intend to protect global capitalism. Now they presume to present a discussion around it, but if we look at the board members, Robert Rubin, Mr. Powell, are basic, corporatists, lawyers. These are very well-established people who truly do have say and sway in geopolitics internationally. So you might recognize some of these names, you might not. Some of the, we also have media people in here. We have Fareed Zakaria. I always mix up his name. I think there was Tom Brokaw in here at one point. I can't remember, but I've had it told to me that Fareed Zakaria, I think Michael Schur said this. Fareed Zakaria knows less about foreign policy than my chair does. That is what Michael Schur had to say about Fareed Zakaria. So that is the end of the web pages that I have lined up for you today, and I will refresh browser. Is the end of the sorry, every time I refresh the browser it starts playing. And okay, actually what I can do, of course, is just mute that. Review comments with you. Okay. So Otto Ferreira has in the comments, Wiki Spooks. I've never heard of this. So they have a better description on the Council of Foreign Relations. My friend Stacy giving me props. Thank you, Stacy. And I'm going in reverse chronological order. Lol, everyone knows your name. Clint Warren is a disappointment. I am not related to Daisaku Ikeda. Okay. Wow. So okay, this fair amount of comments. Tatsu getting wild. Lol, dude, you are so laid back and calm. I dig it. Well, thank you. I will also go over to to YouTube. There, we are broadcasting on YouTube. My gosh, there's a lot of comments here. So 30 people watching over there. How you doing? How you doing, YouTube? How you doing, Periscope? My broadcasts are typically streamed on all 3 channels at once, and please spread the word. I'm just gonna do a little shaking of the cup here. Please do consider our Patreon page. What is Patreon? Patreon is a small donation that you can pledge to give every month. If you'd like to donate a one-time donation to Real Progressives, you may sign up for Patreon on just for 1 month, and then just cancel your Patreon not subscription, but donation or pledge. Please do consider that. A lot of this actually does cost money as well as time, and that is kind of what is keeping us afloat to date. It's not very much, but it does a lot, as you can see. And also sign up for Real Progressives. On the top of the links here is our sign up. We will, be getting emails and all that good stuff. It takes a while to plan an organization that seeks to actually change the way this country and world is going. And of course, we appreciate your shares. So I think that's enough from me. It's about the hour mark. I usually like to do these types of discussions in a half hour, because I believe that's sort of the attention span of most people, especially on Facebook. Appreciate you hanging in and listening to all of it. If you did, I will be back again, I'm sure, sometime soon. We keep strong, keep in solidarity for the Syrian people, of course, but also fight for truth. Here's an opportunity where the truth, if we could reach Donald Trump through tweets or other means, he is a man that doesn't really have any convictions. But if he knows the truth, and he knows, you can see the failure of an Iraq or a Libya, you have to remind yourself that Trump did kind of go back and forth on Iraq. At first he supported it, then he said he didn't, then he says it's a mistake. Wait, what I'm getting at is Donald Trump has been an armchair president for the past 40 years. He's not very good at it, but he despises the appearance of looking wrong. So he will contradict himself. He will deny that he was wrong. If he had the right information, and given what he does know, very little, about history, he may decide that his advisors might be steering him down a bum deal, the wrong path. So that's just a strategy I have. You may have your own. I salute everyone out there protesting. You know, not my particular role in life, but I salute you. All right, I'm gonna roll out of here. Thanks for hanging in again. We'll talk to you soon.